G'day, g'day, g'day. Mathematical KM here. Remember their initials, not a title. Keith Malumbi. Bringing you another cold comfort cup match-up, round 5, with the black pieces. And in this game, the Hippopotamus is going to go up against one of my favourite openings for white, the Iron English. So let's see how this pans out. So C4. So far, we'll just get to the 10 moves in. You can see the Botvinnik grip with the knight in behind, and the fianchettoed bishop. Sometimes this knight is here, but other than that, it is very much the Iron English as shown in Simon Williams' very good course on Chessable. And here we go, the hippo is on its way. He's decided quite often, as I mentioned, this knight is often here, and one of the main pawn breaks, the main pawn break in Simon's course, the Ginger GM, is the F-pawn. So that's something with the placement of that knight that is a little different. I mean, it's got pros and cons, but it does stop that main pawn break there. But with signalling intent, it's looking like a queenside pawn storm is what the white player Matt is looking to go with. And it's already started, and I haven't finished developing all of my pieces. The other thing is a non-standard move the rook to directly protect the fianchettoed bishop. It is part of Simon Riddell's Chess Giant, his course and some of his games online. When two fianchettoed bishops are facing each other, it's often no bad move to not leave this bishop hanging, ready for tactics and tricks when a knight moves. If there's nothing in the way, it's just better to have that bishop protected. Other knight into the middle. Now, in a way, this is the full thick-skinned hippo for what we've got in front of us. The A6 move is not made when there is a pawn on C4, because it is designed to help let you lock it up, and that really doesn't work if there's a pawn here. And just mentioned, rook to the side because the fianchettoed bishops are looking at each other. And given that we have hit the breather moment after the full hippo, thick-skinned hippo setup, 0.1 to white, 0.17, I'd round that to 0.2 chess.com, being a math teacher as well as a teacher librarian. But having said that, 0.1, hippo's doing good. Usually it's more like 0.7 or 8 because of the complete lack of space. This is the jiu-jitsu of chess. We go forward where white is not. Alright, so let's move forward. And in general, and this one's going to be one to go to the Chess Giants Patreon and put it to the experts. Typically, the centre isn't, what's that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns wide. And normally that one would be here. But the standard tactic is to go for the central pawn, which is on an end of the centre. So that would be F5 as a push. Strangely enough, when we get to the end of the game, we had no mistakes or anything, but as an inaccuracy, it doesn't like this move. And you can see it would like castling. I can kind of see that, but I'm hoping to make it a bit of a race. We've got the white pawn storm here. I want a black pawn storm at the king. C5, which is, maybe it's better because there's no pawn here. And g5 is, well, it's coming out here, and I can see how it improves these two, and it gives the h-pawn more protection, not just from the rook, and allows the bishop to go. Whoops, let's go back. What I played, c5, to give me 2 pieces on this pawn, which is currently protected by 2 pieces. But I would dearly like to see this knight move, because quite often people forget bishops can go that far. And, you know, I might win a rook. And I can always get a 3rd piece onto that pawn with the knight coming in behind. So that was the thinking. Attack the edge of the wide centre. That is one of the central pawns. Now, my opponent was probably thinking to give himself a 3rd piece protecting and move a knight into the middle. So far, good thinking, but people forget about your hippo bishops. Not all the time, but often enough. And unfortunately for Matt, this knight is hanging. And so, strangely enough, I won an early piece on Monday night, and then managed a solid incremental, add value to the pieces, eventual victory with the hippo after going up the piece. We'll see what happens this time. Pawn storming. Computer likes bishop back to g7. Interesting. Or taking and effectively swapping it off and getting rid of some pawns. And if I was to castle now, surely I lose the h-pawn, and my king's here, and the queen, well, can't quite come here yet, but I don't like that. So I'm trying to keep it as much as I can sealed and closed on the queen side, and I'd like these guys to start moving forwards. So the move I played now, if he takes me there, A takes back is just not that bad. He can have that file. I've got a rook here, bishop there. You know, I can fight. But for now, that's another piece protecting my bishop, which wasn't under threat, but that just solidifies it. And the pawn is attacking the b pawn. What is protecting the b pawn? Absolutely nothing. And if he were to take me, which at the time I was kind of predicting that he'd take with his b pawn, that isolates that a pawn. But also I was thinking, well, I was tossing up between it, but the knight moving the knight forward, and it's a bit of an outpost because the d pawn can't come through my bishop, so it can't be removed, and it's another knight right in the middle. So what does my opponent play? Well, that's interesting. Pinning the knight to the king and trying to get more of an attack going over here on this queen side. Now, I thought wouldn't it be nice to try and get double all the pawns how I want it, so it's all going to happen on the king side. And I can move my bishop here, protected by the knight, and threatening his queen, hoping to provoke b5, which is starting to get the pawn formation I want. Provoked. Bishop back. Should the a pawn come forward, bishop back, and then we'll have a completely closed queen side and a king side attack. Next move played, rook into the middle, seeing that it's all going to happen on the king side. And while that stays effectively closed. I mean, there's a bit of tension, but that queen's a long way from any of the action, which is good. And I thought this does a couple of things. It does shore up the defences on the queen side a little, but more than that, this knight, that pawn is hanging, and what's more, should a knight manage to take it, threatening a rook. And from there, if it's made to move, other nice outpost here, things. Getting a knight into the middle, and again, kind of an outpost, because this pawn can't come through our bishop, and that pawn is pinned to the king at the moment, can't move. Wisely protecting the hanging pawn. Here comes Gary and Harry. Well, here comes Harry over the other side. But bishop a8, top move. Still on this lovely diagonal. And if I even include the bishop, it's not really a tall pawn because it has got threats. But talk about closing the queen side. Closing the theatre of war that my opponent was going for a pawn storm in. So, sweet. And let's just take a look at the eval. I think he's realised that the new theatre of war is going to be the king's side. And I mean, dropping that piece early is always going to make the eval tough, but that just improved. Trades are good when you're a piece up, and that's in some ways his best piece, or at least a strong defender of the king. It's the second best move is just taking it off the board. That's not my best bishop, but that's his best bishop. What was better? Knight times f5. Oh, bringing another piece in and taking a pawn while I'm at it, but I think I can wipe the bishops off first. And then now the best move is knight takes f5 and played. Two lovely knights in the middle of the board. They're both protected by pawns. And let's just have a quick talk about a zone of control from a couple of knights in the middle. That's pretty cool. So a couple of lovely knights in the middle and near the king. He's rerouting his knight. Won't need to keep protecting it and frees up his other pieces. So I guess, yep. Here comes Harry. Harry and Gary, they're on their way. Okay, he's whipped. He didn't like that bishop, so he's whipped it off. But that's a sweet square for that knight with tempo on the queen. And now both knights are putting a lot of pressure on f3, which is going to come into it. Moved his queen forward. Potentially two pieces threatening this knight if I go off and do anything with this one. So he could go down the exchange. And then the queen's threatening a rook here, which is effectively hanging. I mean, there's things for me to watch out for. But I can also see opportunity. And to get to that square And this is almost a pivotal moment for white to recognise that's the big weakness in their position. Take a look at the moves. F4 and G times F4. It's going to go crazy, but G4 stops the queen from getting to F3. H3 is a bit of a sideways thing. It gives the king a different escape square from the badness that might come in. And F3, because of the protection from the rook and the king, also stops the queen from coming in there. And this is perhaps where it goes from the 3 points that was the drop piece earlier in the game to mate and 7. Because the move that was played reinforces that pawn, but it allowed me to exploit that weakness, and the move to do that being queen to F3. Played. King G1 is best, that's mate and 6. King H3 is worse, it's mate and 3. So the best move is played. Now it's interesting, my level of evaluation wasn't sufficient to see the mate and 6, but it was good enough to get to the 10.2, because I had already noticed before I moved the queen there, I thought that was the only place the king was going to go, and I was thinking there's a fork of queen and king. I'm not going to win the queen, but it's also kind of checkmate, never mind forking the queen. It would be checkmate unless he takes the knight. The rook has to take the knight, the queen takes the rook, so he'll be down a piece and going down the exchange, losing that rook. And that rook together had a bit more power working together. One's going to go away. And the queen's there. Both the knights are going to work with the queen. It's all. So let's see how that works out. So checkmate unless you take. So it was forced. Interesting that the mate and 6 move is not taking the rook, but it's still wanting the H4. Nevertheless, queen takes the rook is 5.5. Which is, that much better than when it's been -3 for a while. Now it's nearly -6. Perhaps allowing the queens off wasn't the way to go when trades are good for me. And I think both players could probably tell that it was just all over by the shouting at this point, but a fork of the king and the rook. I mean, if he wants the knight, he could move the king here, but king goes to where take the rook with check, and it's at that point that my opponent shook my hand. So in this case, the Iron English went down to the Hippopotamus. And so that. It's funny, you make one little blue, it was pretty even right up until, while we were jockeying around, but then dropping that piece. The good news from my point of view is a mistake is a move that worsens your position, nil. Miss, didn't miss any. Blunder, the obvious tactical blunder didn't, so no mistakes, misses or blunders. And 2 of the inaccuracies of the computer not liking the Hippopotamus opening, so I can kind of ignore them. The 3rd inaccuracy was the first move after the breather moment, which I'm actually going to talk to some of the other Hippo players and see what they think about that. But in essence, a very solid, lots of bests and excellence, but no greats or brilliance. It was just the glacial wall. I can't use the same thing as Monday night's game. But the Hippo very slowly, Karpovian, strangling the game. and 91.7 to 89.7, so much for muchness with the opening, but the solid wall of the Hippo got 70 to 60 there. So that was another win for the Hippo, and coming up against the old Iron English, which is also one of my favourite openings. I'll see you guys all in the next exciting Hippo from the Year of the Water Horse. Bye for now.